Wait. All right, I have 12 o'clock.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Wayne Brown, Kay Harrison.
Here.
Mike Parker.
Here.
Roger Tom.
Here.
Jim Snyder.
Here.
Okay, consent agenda. I need a motion to accept the minutes as presented. If everybody's good with them.
Also motion. I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Kay Harrison.
Yes.
Mike Parker.
Yes.
Roger Tom.
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, we're doing a first reading on ordinance 22-01, the ordinance to amend Title 4 of Rogue Valley Sewer Services Code.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone had a chance to look at this. After last month's meeting, we went and made a few changes. And once we started making a few changes, we started making more, and we ended up reorganizing a lot of it. The substance of it, I don't think has changed from what we had before, but since we've changed a lot of the order of it, I felt it would be more appropriate to consider this a first reading rather than try to rush into it. So I don't know if Jenny wants to add more about what's happening with that, but this is just a first reading. Next month, we would have the second reading and approval if everything is good with the board.
Yeah, just echoing that. There was some further legacy language that I wanted to get out of there and some further reorganization I wanted to have done that didn't make it into that reading in January. So I just suggested we do that here.
I think that's a good idea. Get it as tidy and as precise as you want it now. That's a good idea.
And there was some language in there from 2004 or 6 or whenever when we first adopted this. It didn't really make a lot of sense. So it made sense to kind of get that out.
Okay. So now we just need a motion to move it to a second reading next month.
Yes. So I don't think we need how do we normally do that? I always forget. Do we?
I think
Do
the motion.
We have motion to read by title only, and then I read the title, and then that's the end of it until next month.
Okay.
All right, motion to read by title only, but I have a question. I second, but I have a question.
Okay, so after the second, that's when we do deliberation. So
Right. So go ahead and ask your questions.
Yeah, sorry, my deliberation probably should have been before. Would you normally, provide this to us to review in like a track changes format?
we thought about that, but everything was tracked because when you move things around, they track. But I can certainly give that. I can send that to you we have it as in that format. And we thought about doing that, but
If it wasn't convenient,
there was so much. But I can send it to you directly to see. It's easy to do. I'll send it to you.
Hey, Mike, do you have a question?
No, that was his question. I was just want to be a supporter.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we just do a roll call to
Yeah.
move it to next month's.
Yep.
Kay Harrison.
Yes.
Mike Parker.
Yes.
Roger Tom.
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, I will read it. Ordinance number 22-01, an ordinance to amend Title 4 of the Rogue Valley Sewer Services Code. There we go.
Well done.
We'll see it next month. And now for project updates.
You there, Nick?
Nick, it's your turn.
Did I lose him?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here. So beginning at the top, we've got the West Glenwood Pump Station Rehab. We're still waiting for the equipment to show up on this one. It's been ordered. And construction crew will be out there to get that one completed. Shady Cove Pump Station 6, no, there hasn't been a whole lot of movement on this project. Shady Cove Pump Station number 4, abandonment. If you guys remember from last month, I had a little diagram showing where this was. We're getting pretty close on this project. We wanted to bid it by the end of the month, but we're working out a new easement with the property owner of Paradise Mobile Home Park. And he's in Mexico right now till the 4th of March. So he's responding to email. It just makes it a little difficult to sign an easement when you're in Mexico. So we're gonna have to postpone that one. We'd like to get the easement in place before we start constructing. It's just kind of prudent to do that. But that being said, it should go. He's been very agreeable. So at this point, we're pretty confident that one's going to go out to bid next month. Shady Cove Pump Station number 2 rehab. Probably start ripping into that one pretty quick after we get the pump station 4 abandonment bid and get a contractor on board, because we want to get this rehab on Shady Cove Pump Station 2 done this summer as well. And I don't know if we'll finish it before July 1st, before the end of the fiscal year, but we're going to do our best. But it'll more than likely span into fiscal year 23. So Cherry Street sewer replacement, that's a real small project. The construction crew has the plans, and they're just going to get on that when I guess when they get equipment. I haven't heard much from them on this, but it's ready to go. Central Point Forest Main rehab, there's just some punch list items. We've been trying to press the contractor on this project. They had a little dispute on the project with the city of Central Point. There was a mislocated water line and they had to repair it. And then they sent an invoice to the city to reimburse them for the cost to repair the water line that was mislocated, and there was some dispute on the cost. And just this week, they've agreed on that cost. So hopefully they'll move forward and finish everything out within the next couple of weeks. Done pump replacement. This project, we are excited to say the contractor is on site. They've got a bypass up and running. Hopefully, there was a little hiccup this morning. Hopefully they'll get that up and running, but they have the 30-inch knife gate valve that was missing. They were having some procurement issues on that, and they have some structural supports they're going to install this week. And once that is done, it is our anticipation that there will be a handful of little cleanup items, and we will be done dealing with that contractor. We'll close out that contract, and we will have the pump station all to ourselves, and we're pretty happy with it at this point. Maybe not the road to get there, but we're happy with the final product. Let's just put it that way. So lagoon process and wetland and compost project. This is Carl's baby. Do you want me to talk about it, Carl, or do you want to do it?
I can talk about it.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about this off and on for years, but you know, we're at a point right now, we're getting ready to put out a contract to do a lot of the major earthwork that's going to build the 3 new lagoon cells. So we're taking the south cell of the lagoons and we're partitioning that into 3 much smaller lagoon cells that'll be aerated, which will dramatically increase the capacity, our ability to treat hauled waste. That leaves us about 14 acres of the lagoon that's not really needed for treatment at that point.
Carl, if you scroll down on this, there's a little exhibit there on the next page.
There we
It's not a real clean one, but it
Okay.
kind of shows you what's going on there.
So the 3 very regular looking rectangles there, those are going to be the treatment cells for the hauled waste. And then the green swirlies, that area, we're not going to need it for treatment at this point. So we're going to do an enhancement to make it a little bit more suitable for the birds. Because we get a lot of bird watchers and that sort of thing. And they've actually, a couple of different organizations have helped fund the design of that. So we're getting ready to put out a contract to do the major earthwork. We're trying to time that with some of the highway projects that are going on, because there'll be a lot of surplus material. We have to haul in quite a bit of fill to make this work. Our plan is to put that out to bid for the earthwork and some of the underground work. We'll still do a lot of the surface work. The lagoons have to be lined and that sort of thing. So we'll probably do a lot of that ourselves.
Are you gonna put those for the aeration, or are you gonna put the tubes up?
Fountains.
Yeah,
The ones that I'm looking at, they're not ornamental. I mean, they just pump air into the water and
okay.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess that's what will cost effective. So that's-
Yeah,
Could be a really mating place for birds.
it will be. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, it's kind of an interesting little project, and hopefully, we won't have any real hiccups on it. It is a fair amount of money that we're spending on the lagoons. But what this will do is pretty much eliminate all of the capacity limits we have out there right now, especially in the wintertime. The oxygen level in the lagoon gets so low that we can't take any more. We have to cut off the pumpers periodically. Once we have this in, that won't be an issue. We'll be able to take it all.
So we will be getting revenue in.
Yeah, and
So-
the lagoons generate a lot of money.
Yeah,
They-
yeah.
So it's
So it's
yeah,
worth the effort.
yes.
And plus the wildlife stuff.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, and we've worked with the Jackson County Audubon and the Mace Foundation, which is they've got they call it the Watchable Wildlife Foundation. So, and their long-term vision is a little bit just to the west of here. Is they've got access to some of the rock quarries. And as those get depleted, they're going to try to convert those into lakes and wetlands and stuff. The whole idea is to make places where people can go and see wild animals. So this fits in real nicely with their project, and that's why they've been supportive of it.
That's cool.
Yeah, one other thing that I don't know, I think it's kind of cool about this project on the construction end of things is there's so much earthwork on this project that what we're going to do is we're going to employ GPS machine control on this, which is they have. I mean, it's not a new technology, but it'll be actually the first time I've ever had a project that employs it. But many of the contractors now have GPS receivers on all of their earth moving equipment that in multiple locations on the equipment that tells them where they are in space and where their bucket is in elevation, like vertical and horizontal location based on GPS receivers on their equipment. And it'll tell them when they're digging too low or too high within 1/10 of an inch. Well, sorry, not 1/10 of an inch, but 1/10 of a foot.
Oh,
And so, which is, when you're, it's not very, not very big. And they can just basically go out there and the driver just drives the equipment and it kind of just does it for them. So there's no grade checking or anything. And it's all tied in with hubs and control around the facility. It's going to be pretty cool to see how close they can get to the actual final design.
It's robots.
It's amazing.
yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like Carl was like, is there a guy driving the machine or is it just go out there and do it? No, so it's very soon. You'll probably won't even have anybody driving those machines, but it's pretty amazing technology. It'll be cool to see, but just as an aside. But as far as my report goes, that's it. for now.
That's cool. Thanks. Okay, stormwater update. Jenny?
Yeah, so the first part of my update there was just the title review, which we've done. And then actually the next part of my update was specifically the mud flat enhancement that we're doing out at the lagoon. We've been managing those as two separate projects because that wetland mud flat enhancement part is being done through a stakeholder process. So I've been overseeing that process, and we did get the report from the consultant who we've contracted to develop the design, the grading, the vegetation management plan, the hydrology management plan for that portion of the site out there. So we received their draft plan last month, and we had a stakeholder advisory committee meeting to go over the draft plan. There was a couple requests for minor changes made, but other than that, we've pretty much got that plan. And we've had to do some work on our side to get their grading plan into our design so we can put it out for the contract, as Nick mentioned, and then do all of that grading at one time. The rest of that wetland enhancement, the vegetation installation, probably will be out at least a year from the grading that will be happening, we hope, this summer. Part of that is Carl's desire is for the stakeholders to come up with the funding for the vegetation installation. And so that will be a process. And I don't have a timeline on when they may actually be able to come up with that. It is kind of crucial that it follows within that year. If it doesn't, we will be having to do some vegetation management regardless, because stuff will start to grow in there and it may be not be what we want. So it's going to be kind of interesting how that will fall together.
It'll work out. All right.
We appreciate the confidence.
Okay.
So, and I think it'll be great. It'll be really fun to do the machine controlled project. I was actually worked on wetland design projects before I came here 12 years ago, where we were doing machine controlled large wetland mitigation projects. So it does work really well.
Cool.
And then the next project I have on here is the Cummins Stormwater Facility, which is actually something that we had talked to you guys about over a year ago, I think. And we had kind of abandoned that project as the property owner had come. Basically, we had been in contact with the property owner. This is down in Talent on the Cummins property, where we had identified an opportunity to put in a regional stormwater facility on their property, and had talked with the property owner about the possibility of locating it there. And at that point in time, the property owner had basically said yes, but they wanted us to purchase that location, that portion of the property, in order to locate the stormwater facility there. And it was a fairly high price that we were not interested in pursuing. Recently, they've contacted us again and said that they are interested in possibly donating that portion of the property to us for this purpose. So we're back talking with them and seeing if we can go forward with this.
Okay, what does that really mean, Jenny, that they're gonna donate the property? Because donations are never really free.
Yeah.
As far as-
So, I mean, just back it up a little bit. Initially, what we had proposed to them is that they would give us an easement, and it's kind of a part of their parking lot that's way down by the river. And in exchange for that, we were going to reroute the storm drain across their property, because right now it cuts kind of diagonally across it. And we were going to build it and do all all the work, and then they would get basically all of their stormwater requirements would be met.
Mhm.
And they came back and said, well, that's all great, but we think you guys should pay us like $130,000 for it. So they came up with a number. Nick was in a lot of discussions with them about how they were pricing it, and it was no go. I mean, it didn't make any sense. We were going to be spending quite a bit of money and improving their property, make it more usable by getting the storm drain out of the middle of the site and that sort of thing. And our feeling is that, they were really getting a good deal out of it. And so we just left it alone. And now they've come back and what they're proposing, I believe, is that they would do a partition and basically deed over the section that we're going to be working on. We would still do those offsite improvements. So their benefit is they're getting the stormwater requirements for their property met. So when they go to develop it, they're covered. And then they're also getting the storm drain that crosses through the middle of their property would be relocated. So it wouldn't,
So that
basically,
gives them an advantage as well.
right, it frees up. I mean, it may, for them to develop the site with that storm drain there would be challenging. They would have had to move it probably themselves anyway. So this helps them. And I think, so you're right. It's not free, but it's work that we anticipated as part of the project that we would be doing. Is that, Nick, Jenny, is that pretty much accurate?
Yeah, I just had a conversation. Can I share my screen, Carl?
Oh, yeah, I'll unshare.
I don't have the best exhibit here. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So this property here, you can't see it, but the old Walmart or the Cummins battery facility is right here. This is the Talent exit. Here's Bear Creek, and kind of that candy striped hatched area right there. That's the regulatory floodway. The rest of it is all in the floodplain. But generally speaking, as far as like an area to be able to do anything in, the floodway is one of the most difficult areas to do any sort of development. And so this project really lends itself to doing something there, because you're basically taking out a parking lot that's currently in the floodway. You can't do anything with it. You barely, I mean, by the letter of the law, you couldn't even go and repave it or stripe it. But this project will just excavate out the stormwater facility, which will be a huge benefit to the upstream drainage basin, which is 50 plus acres of urban drainage basin. And it was basically all in the burn area. And so this location was identified as a really good spot to do this. And like Jenny had said, we went through the rigmarole, and the property owners randomly called me a couple weeks ago and said, we want to give you the property. And I said, sounds good. I guess it pays.
Yeah, so,
It pays to play hard to get. So we're going through this process right now, and right now I'm doing all the due diligence with the city of Talent to be able to at least get a verbal, and I'd like to get a condition of approval through a pre-application meeting through their planning process that says, here's your conditions of approval for actually getting this across the goal line, because
yeah.
there's a riparian ordinance, there's a floodplain ordinance, there's all sorts of stuff. So I think we're probably going to have a meeting in the next couple weeks to identify all those before we get an agreement with the property owner.
Cool.
So it's not an easy one, but once it's done, it'll be it's a perfect spot for it, and it'll be a real good benefit to especially to the community that is trying to rebuild, and this will satisfy their treatment requirements.
Okay,
So
that's what I needed to know. Thanks, Dan.
okay.
Anybody else have any other questions of Jenny or?
Can I just ask one question? Referring back to the prior issue of the 3 new septic lagoons, how deep are those?
The new ones are they're going to have a water depth of 8 feet and then a 3 foot of freeboard on top of that. The current lagoon is a 5 foot depth.
Cool. Any other questions? Moving on. Shane, it's your turn.
All right, good afternoon. For the month of January, it was business as usual. We didn't get any rain pretty much for the whole month, so no significant things happened out of the ordinary. The lagoons did receive a bumper month. They received quite a bit of septage and porta potty waste and fog for a total of $64,828.50 for the month. So I would say that's probably close to one of their record months.
Yeah.
The special cleaning, again, that's pretty much expected. The numbers will probably start a decline for the next few months. We've drastically shrunk our special cleaning list as a result of all of our high quality projects that we've been doing on the construction side. Have really eliminated a lot of the headaches that have been causing us grief for the last few years. So only 34 equipment hours and 59.5 labor hours were spent on special clean last month for a total of $4,912.50. We did do some outside work for the city of Rogue River. We ran out there and unplugged a storm drain pipe for them. Good news on the pump station. We did receive a new pump for the Ross Lane station, so we've got that back in and we're back on 2 pumps. And then vehicles and equipment, we did sell our old Generac 50 kilowatt generator for $9,000. And that was a generator we bought used from the city of Talent back in 2004. And we paid $11,000 for it back then. So I think we did pretty good recouping our money back on that unit. That's pretty much all I have. I'm sorry I don't have any fancy exhibits or fancy pictures to go with my presentation, but I'll try to spice it up next time. But just so you're aware, my pictures and exhibits may have to come with a disclaimer acknowledging you may experience some sickness.
Hire a artist to help you.
We have an artist, but he retired.
We always appreciate your reports, even if they don't have pictures.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Carl, manager's report.
Okay, we talked about our stormwater ordinance already on the COVID pandemic. There's nothing new to report right now. Although the governor has indicated that she expects to lift all indoor mask mandates by the end of March and possibly sooner. So we'll see what happens when that happens, but we're all looking forward to that. The big questions. So we're getting started on the budget process, and things are a little goofier than they have been historically. And so I want to get some direction from the board on a couple of
They have
things.
Flexibility built into the program.
Yes. So the first one is on the labor. We got a couple of different questions on that. So we've talked about our staff levels. And we did back in October, you said, okay, it's okay. We had one person retiring. So we said, okay, to replace him with 2 people. And we did that, and that's an O&M. We had an inspector and our stormwater coordinator and our engineering tech all left within short order. So we replaced our engineering tech. We have our stormwater tech is starting next week, I believe. And then for the inspector, we transferred someone from operations over and didn't refill his position. So we're actually at the same staffing level as we were before, even though we thought we were going to be increasing. We were planning to add a staff engineer position and an additional GIS position. And that's something that we plan to build into the budget. If all those things happen and we fill everything, what we're looking at, and we also did the salary adjustments last month.
Yeah.
So you factor all those things in, And, we're looking at an increase of our personnel services by about 7% plus whatever we decide on cost of living adjustment. So it's a fairly significant increase. I think, on the staffing levels, we've always run very lean on that side. And I think even with this, I think we're still fairly lean. But we are getting to a point where there's a lot going on. And I think it's, so my recommendation, what I hope to be able to do is to build the budget with that level of staffing in mind. So that's,
So we'll have 41
that-
employees all together.
yes. So that's the first question I would have.
I guess I'm thinking we've previously consented to that.
Not quite, but yeah, there's one more that you haven't consented to yet, but so that's one question. The cost of living adjustments is the next one. So back when we had a union contract, it was typically built into the contract that every year the cost of living would be adjusted based on the CPI, Consumer Price Index. And there was a maximum and a minimum. And that maximum minimum varied. I mean, it was 1 to 5, it was 2 to 4, it was different ranges. The whole time we had that I'm aware of, I think there was twice where the minimum got triggered. Never the maximum got triggered. Well, and then since the union went away, we've just said, whatever the CPI is, that's what we do. This year it's like 7.5%. So that's pretty significant also. And so we looked at, so on one hand, that's what it is. That's, makes sense. That's what we do because that's, people will see that for real. I mean, it's affecting people's lives. You look at what other places are doing locally that have labor contracts, and a lot of them don't even tie to a CPI. A lot of them will just build in some kind of, they'll just pick a number and say, this is what we agreed to, that's that. A lot of them will tie to CPI, but they'll put the limits on them. And the ones locally, looks like around 3.5 or 4% is typically where I think that's where Central Point is, Water Commission, Jacksonville, City of Medford. I mean, they're kind of in that place. Brenda cast a little bit wider net just to get a sense of what's happening. And it's all over the place. I mean, there are some jurisdictions that stick with the CPI, and they're looking at that 7 whatever % increase on that. So that's the next big question. As we put the budget together, how do we want to approach that? The next question is, Roger, last month you asked, why don't we pay off the debt in Shady Cove? And I said, I don't know, we should. So we looked at it and we can't. There's provisions in the bond that says it can't be paid off until 2026 or 20, I think it was 26. So that's fixed in. But since we're looking at it, we looked at the other bond issue that we have, that's our other debt out of our general fund. And that has the same type of provision, but that one can be paid off as soon as October 2022. So we have the ability to pay off all that debt this year or this coming budget year if we want to.
How much is the interest rate on that?
It's, Brenda might chime in, I think it's somewhere between 3 and 4%.
Okay, that's better than we can get on almost anything.
It is, yeah.
So, but what I mean is, by paying it off, we've also actually paid ourselves because we've taken out that debt we had at 3 to 4%.
Right, that's.
So it actually pays us to pay off.
It does. I know, some advisors will say if you're in a real high inflation environment like we are, then, the government's weapon against inflation is usually raising interest rates. So, it might flip on us if we do that, but I don't know. But I think it's about $1.8 million total. And we're paying a little over $300,000 a year in principal and interest payments. So It does pay for itself. The next question I have is with the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And there's still a little bit of uncertainty on how this is going to come to be, but my understanding as of right now is the part that would apply to us is DEQ is going to get additional funding into the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund to the tune of about $20 million a year for the next 5 years. About half of that is specifically earmarked for additional subsidy, which is basically principal forgiveness. So there's a lot of extra money coming into DEQ. They're going to be lending it out and doing some principal forgiveness. The way their principal forgiveness plan works right now is if you are in an economically distressed area, which currently Jackson County is, then you are eligible for principal forgiveness up to 50% of the cost of a project or $500,000, whichever is higher. So it's a lot of money, but relative to some projects, it's not, it's not a lot.
You got a project you could spend it on?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Well, I've got a ton of projects. I mean, so that's the question. So the way that the process would work is we would have to make application on a project and go through this whole process. And there's the administrative load on it is quite a bit. I mean, they call it the federal cross-cutting authorities, which is a weird term, but you have to contact, the state historical office to see if there's any historical artifacts. If you have to contact, the different environmental groups, wetlands and fisheries and endangered species, and you have to contact the tribes to see if there's any cultural significance to the area.
So they make
So-
you work for it.
Yeah, and it's not that any of our projects really would be in danger of being scuttled by any of these features, but it is you have to jump through all those hoops. So there's a fair amount of work on that. And then when you get to the end of that, that's when they'll tell you, we'll fund this as a loan. And we may or may, they'll tell you before you sign the loan payments whether or not they're going to forgive any of the principal. So you go through all that. The loan rates they have right now, and we if we were doing it, I would do the shortest term, which is 5 years. It's like 0.5% interest, and then they have a 0.5% for, so it's like 1% interest you're paying over 5 years. So it's not, that part's real easy. Anyway, there's quite a few projects that we have in our capital plan that would lend themselves to this. So I would want to, if we do this, we want to get started pretty quickly just to make sure we're in the queue for everything. But that's the other question, is whether or not we build that into the budget, this expectation that we're going to be getting proceeds.
Can you give us a list by next board meeting of some of the projects because I know we've got stuff.
It is the Antelope Road project, which is the industrial side of Antelope Road. That's about a $5 million project. We've got a disinfection project at Shady Cove Treatment Plant to convert to ultraviolet disinfection. That's probably in the range of $300,000 to $400,000. We've got we've got the Cummings project that we just talked about. That would fit under it. We've got another regional stormwater facility out in White City on 7th Street. I don't think we have a cost estimate on that yet, but that would be one that we would probably put on the list. There's one in Gold Hill that's going to take a little bit of a dance to try to make that work.
Yeah, I was wondering if Gold Hill, because we is, but we isn't.
Yeah, that's going to be the trick out there, but that'll be something that we're going to see where it goes on that. There's there's a lot of collection system projects that if he starts getting up to the $300,000 to $400,000 level, then it makes sense to go through the process. The smaller ones, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So, I'd say there's probably about 5 or 6 right now for next year's budget that would fit. And since this is a 5-year thing, I mean, there's more stuff.
Only get money for one project, or could you get it for?
So, see now I'm this is a trigger warning. When they did this before in 2009, we put in for 14 projects and we got 0. Yeah, so if we get a project for one, that's like 1,000,000% improvement over the last time. And another thing that, like I said, there's some uncertainty in it, and so one of my concerns, and hopefully this will, they'll do some public comment before if they make any kind of a change, but right now they have that $500,000 limit. And one of the things that does is that makes sure that they have to spread it out a little bit further. If they're in this push where they have to give away $20 million, and they don't care who it goes to, it's from their standpoint, it's a lot easier to do that to 1 or 2 projects. And so, Clackamas gets $10 million, Redmond gets $10 million. Oh, we're done. Good for us. I mean, that's a concern that I have. I mean, I don't know if there's any basis for it. It's just a paranoia I have.
Well, is it justified paranoia?
I don't know. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that everyone's not out to get you. So yeah, anyway, that's another question we have on the budget. So if we built this into the budget, I would not presume any loan forgiveness. I would presume that we were borrowing it and paying it all back, but that's
Okay.
So
I don't understand what this maybe has to do with the budget, I guess.
well, it's a little bit different direction than we've taken before. We typically have not built in any kind of loan proceeds into the budget. So if we're going to take that direction, I want the board to be on board
It helps us
as we start.
be able to take advantage of it
Yeah.
if it does happen, because it's.
Yeah.
But it just totally distorts the budget. I
It-
don't think we should be talking about wish lists or hypothetical deals that may
Well,
happen.
some of this we're gonna do anyway, isn't it?
the projects we're going to do,
Yeah,
yeah. So the question is, I
how
mean,
it's gonna be paid.
yeah, are we going to plan that we're going to get proceeds from the EQ to fund those that will pay back over the next 5 years? Or are we going to just do the project? I mean, I think we're still going to try to get some of the loan forgiveness money if we can. And we wouldn't take out any loans unless there was a loan forgiveness, I don't think, because we don't need to.
Yeah,
So the question, so really what it comes down to is, are we going to build the budget and have this assumption that, a certain amount of it we're going to get as loan proceeds that will pay off? Or do we just leave that part out of it and build the budget as if we weren't going that route? And if we do get free money, then hooray.
can we
Yeah.
do it as we are gonna do those projects and not necessarily get the money, but then if we do, can we still use the money?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't,
That's the way we should do it.
okay. Okay, so,
Wouldn't that stink? You
Yeah.
know what, do you know what, because you guys are right. We can't assume that we're gonna get anything, because chances
Yeah.
are we might not,
yeah,
but we've got to do the projects anyway.
yeah,
Right.
Sometimes I've seen where when you build a budget, you have to put in how it's going to be taken care of. And if there's any, you have to put in the stipulations
yeah.
of stuff.
So, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be dependent upon getting any loan money to do the
But if
project.
we
So
got it, we could use it.
if we
for-
got it, we could still use that. Yeah,
Even though it wasn't designated in the budget
right,
precisely.
right.
Okay.
Unless,
You know what I mean, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so,
Build back better. But see, you never really get free money,
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
and you
No.
shouldn't really count that money that you have in your hand and spend it.
So I guess the bottom line for the other questions that we had is that I'm reasonably confident that we could do all of those things, you know, with the personnel, with the COLA, you know, with the, what was the other question? The paying off the debt,
But
with about $1 a month increase in the residential rate. Might be a little bit higher now because I was basing it on a 7%, not a 7.5% COLA. But I'm confident that can be done.
I'm good. I'm talking a lot. You guys can, just, you
I
know,
think we should hit each item individually.
yeah, okay, let's go with item number 1 first. Which,
Bullet 1, done.
the budget issue.
Yeah.
I mean, for 41 employees, I'm good with that.
Okay, so wait, okay, let me back up just one more minute here.
Okay,
So what we're deciding today is not the final decision.
okay,
So what I'm asking for right now is the direction that we should build the proposed budget. Next month, I'm going to come back to you and we'll have that proposed budget and I'm going to say, this is our rate analysis. This is what it's going to take to meet that proposed budget. If that doesn't look good, you guys can say, don't do that.
Okay.
We're going to go to the budget committee. And the budget committee is going to go through the same exercise of is this good or no good? And if the budget committee approves it, then we're going to go to the June board meeting and that's where we adopt the budget. That's where we approve all the compensation plan for next year and the rate ordinance. So that's the final decisions on any of this stuff's not going to happen until
not until
June.
later.
So what we're
We
doing
can
right
get
now
more
is you're
opinion.
pointing me in the direction of where you think we're going to end up. So you were agreeable to,
Are we taking the bullets in order?
well, however you want to do it.
I think
Yeah.
we should take them in order, yeah.
Which one are you on?
The first list, are we good with the first one? Which is the,
Yes.
okay,
I don't know. What is it?
The first one was whether or not we're going to increase our staffing up to 41 people.
41 employees,
Agreed.
okay. The second one is the cost of living adjustment.
So I have an opinion on it.
So do I. You go
Possibly
first,
what?
Roger. The cost of the CPI.
Okay.
So I think it's worth factoring it into the budget. But I think we need more evidence of other organizations, you know, to go from 4 to 7 to support us doing that.
I agree
Okay.
with Roger. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with 7%. Especially because we just made some changes. We
Mhm.
just made some adjustments to
If we
salary.
can be
and
on that
things.
7% list, then that I would like it.
Yeah. I don't mind the 4% because I know how much it costs out there right now. I mean, all of us do. But I want to look at it some more before we just say,
Okay.
I agree.
oh yeah, let's do 7%.
Yep. I agree.
Hey, is everybody good with that?
Yep.
We want to look at it a little bit closer.
Mhm.
Is Jim good with that?
Jim, what do you think?
Are you awake?
Is he muted?
Yeah, I think he's muted, but I can't tell.
No? Can you hear us, Jim?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Okay.
you're very clear and our illustrious chairperson is very clear. Everybody else in the room is kind of like distorted and I can't really hear that. I guess at different distances from the microphone. Staffing levels, I'm good with. CPI, I'd like to see the numbers worked up before I can go with that, but generally as a concept, probably okay. Shady Cove payoff. It takes money out of the treasury, but you're not putting money into expenditures in the future. So that probably has some big benefits, but again, I got to see the actual numbers on the cash flow part of that. And the infrastructure bill is a what if kind of drill. Low probability of success, good success if you get it. Probably worth doing it. If you get the 50% write-off on the principal, maybe some of that Shady Cove type debt helps compensate for that. And the low rates, if it stays around 1%, that's a lot better than the 3 or 4 you're paying for the Shady Cove right now. So I think a workup, it comes to the next meeting. Maybe it has a course of action 1 that has all this built in, but be prepared to have a course of action 2 that has some of these scaled down to some degree. So we can take a look at the difference in the numbers that come out of these things. Might even take 3 courses of action to be able to come up with a good solution to this thing. That's my thoughts.
Okay.
Gentlemen, you guys' thoughts on the third one? Sorry.
Yeah, question on number 3. So what's our interest that we're getting on the 9 or 10 million?
It's less than 1%.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty minimal.
So if we pay off that, we're actually paying ourselves more because
Yeah.
we're paying it off.
Yeah, I mean, it's cash that you're not going to have for other stuff for a short period of time, but it's, yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, unless interest rates, skyrocket, which, is a possibility. I mean, it's everything's really flexible right now. My personal opinion is that no debt's better than debt under any scenario. So, I mean, it just, so what I'm going to do, I think, to address the concerns, like I said, typically in March, I present a rate analysis and see what our rates have to be over the next 5 years. And I usually go through a couple of different scenarios. I say, okay, if if we freeze our rates, what's the most we can do for capital improvements if we, in that. So I'll add some scenarios to it to address the different options on cost of living adjustment, and might as well put the pay off the debt in there also. I mean, to just add a couple of extra variables. There'll be a few more scenarios on it, but that should hopefully address the questions that we have. You'll be able to see, what the actual impacts on the rates are if we do these different changes.
Because normally, how long would it take us to pay that 1.8 million off? How much of that would be interest? And if we
Right.
pay it all off now, how much interest we're going to be saving
Right.
by doing it? And it'd be interest that we'd be saving that we can't get back by having that in some kind of other, that money in some kind of other fund, because there's not enough interest.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we're very restricted on where we put
Yeah.
our cash holdings. And we used to try to, I mean, we have limits, we can put them in CDs and things like that. And we used to try to do stuff like that. And it was, you're getting 0.25% more by locking it up for 5 years and things like that. It just didn't make any sense. So we just rely exclusively on the local government investment pool right now. And that's, we're not trying to make money off of the interest earnings. And,
Well, we
yeah.
can't anymore, like
Right.
not what we used to be able to do, so. Okay.
All right.
You guys have any other questions or anything else you'd like?
So I think, overall, at least what we've looked at so far, the budget's looking surprisingly good. So we're doing okay on that.
Yeah, I know this last year was a little tough, but
Yeah.
we made it through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to keep us in good shape, so in case anything else buggers up,
Right.
we will still be in good shape.
Okay. And then I just wanted to make note that I'm not anticipating any changes in the SDCs, but I would note that we haven't changed our permit fee since 1996. And it costs a little bit more than $60 worth of labor to to go through a
We should probably look
permit.
at that.
So there's a good chance. I mean, that's a real small part of, I mean, that really is not going to have a significant impact on budget or anything, but it is something that I plan to address. Okay, moving on, Gold Hill. Our agreement with Gold Hill expires at the end of June. And so I've been talking with the new city manager over there on Gold Hill about possibly extending that. What I am proposing is basically an extension of the agreement that we have, the same terms and conditions that we have. But the one addition, I guess, that we would have is that I would put an annexation clause into it. And my idea was that, so right now they're under an MAO. It's called a Memorandum of Agreement and Order with DEQ. And it has a long list of things that they must do. 5 years ago, when we went into the first agreement with them, the expectation was that it was going to be done by now because there's only a few items left. Well, obviously that hasn't happened. They still need to make a decision on what's going to happen to their treatment plant. They can build a pump station and join the region. They can rebuild the pump station. They could destroy the pump station, build a whole new, build a whole new treatment facility, try to fix what they have there now, or build a pump station and connect. They haven't made that decision yet. So there's, DEQ keeps giving them extensions. But I guess my proposal to them would be that, we'll keep the place running while they get this all figured out. And once they're satisfied the agreement, then they would agree to, within a year after that, to put it to a vote to see if they want to annex. I don't know if they'll agree to that or not. I planning to go to the council, I think in March. It's either the end of this month or in March, to basically have the same discussion with them. But that's where we are right now. If nothing happens, like I said, the agreement expires at the end of June. We have built in a provision that says that we'll give them 90 days extension to help the transition. So I don't know what they would do otherwise, but that's, time's getting short. They really do need to make some decisions here pretty quickly. So hopefully I'll spur them into some action.
So are you going to extend the agreement for another 5 years, or are you going to extend it for a shorter length of time?
I was thinking of just keeping it open until they get all their stuff finished, but I don't want to give them an incentive to not get their stuff finished. So I'm dancing around that part of it right now.
I don't think you should do it for another 5 years.
More or less.
Less.
Okay. They may not have their if they follow all of the time schedules that are set right now, I think the soonest that they can have it all done is about 2026. So
Well, they have a history of not doing anything.
I know that is a concern. And we want to make sure that that everything gets done, and I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to try to go for an annexation vote until they've got all that secured.
I concur with that.
Because,
That's a good idea.
yeah. So it is a little bit, it is definitely still up in the air, but I'll keep that in mind that, we want to keep that as short as possible before they make a commitment.
I guess I don't understand why do we feel the need to kind of push them all?
It's generally been our philosophy that something that we want to do what's good for the valley. And so that I guess that's it. I mean, we don't have, financially, it's a sliver of our budget. So it's not really, it's not something that is crucial for our operations. It helps from a management standpoint, because we're doing Shady Cove and the lagoons and Gold Hill treatment plants. Where we position forces works really well. If we did not have Gold Hill, we would have to take one of the employees from the treatment department and move them back into collections. And even then it would be we'd be a little bit overstaffed, I think, for the two plants that are remaining. So, but that's a pretty minor concern in the big picture of it. So really it's kind of a philosophical approach that, our overriding goal is, what's right for the valley, what's right for the, it's an environmental thing. And, maybe it's an ego thing that we think we can do everything better, but
I
Yeah.
don't, if they decide to do it themselves, I'm good with that too.
yeah,
But I just want a decision, that's all. And Roger's got a good point, is we don't want to push it too much because we want it done right.
right,
And we want it done right for Gold Hill. But again, we've staffed the way we've staffed because of Gold Hill.
right,
And so everything they do does affect us.
Yeah.
And so we're in limbo all the time like that, like we've been. It still has, repercussions on us one way
Yeah.
or another.
it does. And I don't know. I mean, I guess that's, I think I mentioned last month that, the city manager was talking about putting out an RFP and taking that approach. And when I met with him, I said, we're a public agency. We're not going to bid on a contract. We can do an IGA and we're happy to do that. But I don't want to get into a position where we're trying to negotiate the services or anything like that. I mean, it's, we have the standards that we think that it should be built to, and we're willing to satisfy that. But if that's not what they want, if they want to go with something that's going to be cheaper or whatever, then that's, ultimately that's their call. if that's what they want. And I don't think we're going to we would compromise on the level of service that we would provide to try to bring it in at a lower price. So I'll keep you apprised on that. And then the last one I have here, it's just another one of these, I don't know, wild hairs I get sometimes, I guess. But I've been talking to an outfit called the Oregon Clean Power Cooperative. And I got turned on to them. There was an article in the paper. They did a project in Talent, and it's a co-op project where they build solar facilities and sell shares. And there's a couple of different financial models that they do. And I think they're mostly a financing organization. But what they have proposed to us for Shady Cove is I think it's a 200 kilowatt system, big enough to power the entire plant. And the way their financing model works is that there's kind of three pieces. There's grant money that they apply for through the Department of Energy. There's tax investors, and the tax investors are people who invest money and technically have ownership in the system and get all the tax incentives for it. And so that's that's worth it for people to do that at a certain income level, I guess. And then the last element is what they call community investors. And community investors are just any person who wants to can buy a share of this system, and they get paid a dividend over 10 years. So you pay $1,000 And every year you get a check back for $104. And for the next 10 years. So that's your investment as a citizen. And so how that would affect us is that they would build this thing. We wouldn't pay for any of it. But it would offset our power bill. Our power bill is around $40,000 a year that we pay at Shady Cove, but we would have to pay these community investors back with their dividend, which would be about $35,000 a year. So we come out $5,000 ahead, and at the end of 10 years, the whole thing is owned by us. So it's kind of a shell game a little bit. I mean, one of the hiccups is we need to get land from the neighbor. And I've talked to the neighbor and he seems agreeable, but we haven't really gotten down to the nuts and bolts of, how much is it going to cost?
So there'd be an investment on that part too.
Yeah, so we would, we would have to put up some money up front to do that part of it. Another thing that in their proposal, the cost of the project, they were proposing to put in a battery bank that would make us completely, we would still have a grid connection, but we wouldn't have any, we would rely, we'd be able to be completely cut off from outside power and still operate indefinitely. That's a big expense, and that's a lot. That's like 2 rooms the size of this boardroom full of batteries. It's a lot of batteries. And I'm really questioning that of whether or not that's an appropriate way to
Is the
go.
technology there?
I believe the technology is, and I think there are definitely other utilities that are doing that. But a couple of things. The justification for that is we have an earthquake. Everything's wrecked. Power's out for a month, 2 months, whatever it takes to get power back up. Under that scenario, we would be able to operate the treatment plant, but everything else is wrecked. If there's no power, there's very little coming into the plant because there's pump stations that feed it. There's, most of the people in Shady Cove are on wells. If they have no power, they're not getting any, so it doesn't, it'd be nice to be able to operate, but what is the benefit of operating? It's far more important to have clean water coming to people and having your bridges built back up than, even if we're discharging completely untreated sewage into the river for a month, that kind of pales in comparison to the effects of the other things that are going on. So, but beyond that, we have a generator. And so we can operate at full capacity with no power as long as we have fuel for the generator. So, and we're a relatively high priority for emergency fuel supplies. So I'm questioning that part of it. That's just another thing that we need to work out. And that's a big part of the expense too. So there's a lot, there's a lot more that has to happen before we pull the trigger on anything, but just kind of throwing that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is one of those projects that you need to do Carl's financial feasibility study on
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and see what it shows.
Yeah, I think the financial aspect of it, pencils out pretty good.
Well,
But
after if you pay $100,000 for the land.
well, yeah, that's unknown. Yeah, I'm not gonna pay that much. But yeah. So the land is a big part of it. But anyway, there will be more to come, and I'll have more information on that. Okay, so that's all I have. I got a slideshow if you want, but you guys have to leave in 10 minutes and we still have to do claims. So,
Well, and can we talk about the budget committee meeting?
oh, we need to
April
set a
22nd.
date, April 22nd,
27th.
27th,
Okay, I can do that.
which is the 4th Wednesday in April.
Yes.
27.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll remember.
Change finally in place.
That works for everybody.
That'd be fine for me.
No,
It's a Wednesday. I haven't got to my
And it'll
calendar.
be morning?
It'll be at noon, just, yeah,
Am I on that budget committee still?
yes.
I believe so.
Until what year? Remember offhand? 2 years or 3 years?
It's 3-year term.
We're just
I
gonna
thought we
keep
got
you
rid of it.
forever.
Wednesday, April 27th.
Yeah, we usually do it the week after the board meetings.
Okay. Okay, anything else? I need a motion to pay the bills.
I so motion.
I was second for that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Kay Harrison,
Yes.
Roger Schultz,
Yes,
Mike
please.
Parker,
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes,
Thank you, Jim.
welcome.
I
Oh.
try to talk louder so we can.
Okay, are we adjourned?
Yeah, we're adjourned.
Okay.
Take care of yourself, Jim.
I am. They're removing my PICC line tomorrow
Oh,
Oh, good.
Yay.
after 6 weeks of antibiotics.
Mhm.
okay.
I'm still tethered to the thing right now.